We agreed to support Poland's investigation into the explosion in rural Poland near the Ukrainian border. And I'm going to make sure we figure out exactly what happened. And then we're going to collectively determine our next step as we investigate and proceed. There was total unanimity among the folks at the table. It's unlikely in the minds of the trajectory that it was fired from Russia, but we'll see.
Attention shifting from Bali to Poland, escalation fears easing following an explosion near the Polish-Ukrainian border.
We have no indication that this was the result of a deliberate attack. We have no indication that Russia is preparing offensive military actions against NATO. Our preliminary analysis suggests that the incident was likely caused by a Ukrainian air defense missile fired to defend Ukrainian territory against Russian cruise missile attacks.
This coming as world leaders wrap up G20 meetings and President Biden returns to a lame duck Congress. Our team coverage begins right now with Annmarie over in Bali, and with us from Brussels is Maria Tadeo. MH, first to you. The events of the last 24 hours, what are the lessons learned?
I think the lessons learned are that the U.S., along with the G7 leaders and the NATO leaders, really wanted to work on making sure they had the facts right before they escalated a situation that was obviously incredibly worrisome. And really what you saw from this morning to right now this evening is really the Western alliance moving back from the brink. There was discussion of Article 4, discussion of Article potentially 5 lingering out there. But what they did and what the president discussed with reporters was that they wanted to wait for the assessment to be done. And that's what they did. And what they found out was that, Jonathan, this was the preliminary investigation. This was a Ukrainian defense missile that was warding off a Russian missile. Now, one thing that is very clear, whether it's Chancellor Olaf Scholz, whether it's President Biden, whether it's Jens Stoltenberg, is that they say Russia in the end bears responsibility because, of course, this is the 9th month of the war in Ukraine, and that's Putin's war in Ukraine and his invasion.
Maria, there is a tweet from the Ukrainian foreign minister that is still up from 16 hours ago that says Russia now promotes a conspiracy theory that it was allegedly a missile of Ukrainian air defense that fell on the Polish territory, which is not true, except we found out that preliminary investigations suggest it might be. What's your take on that?
Look, Jonathan, it's very difficult here because you have to understand the political situation, just the emotional situation in Ukraine right now is very difficult. We need some context here. Yesterday was a terrible day for Ukraine. This country was pounded by Russia in what looks like retaliation for isolation at the G20. And of course, the fact that the Ukrainian army was able to get back Kherson, that was humiliating for the Russian army. So this is a country that is still reeling in so many ways for what was yesterday just a pounding across the country. Now, the Ukrainians, of course, are always very sensitive to this perception that maybe they are the bad ones or the ones that do not do everything correctly or the right way. And this is why you see, the Ukrainians, to some extent, on the passive-aggressive saying, well, do not buy anything that Russia says. How can you believe that Russia says it was Ukrainian air defense and take their words? Moscow lies all the time. But I should say something. The fact that this was a Russian missile air defense does not mean that Russia does not bear responsibility. This goes back to what Annmarie said. A lot of this is happening because of Russian actions. It doesn't mean that Ukraine doesn't have a right to defend itself. But of course, the country is a bit on the passive aggressiveness today.